Hello, and welcome to today's special event, Page Turners and Heartburners, The Art of YA Romance. I'm Kelly Ferreira, Books for Youth Associate Editor at Booklist, and I use they, she, and he pronouns. Before we begin, I'd like to go over some technical details. The audience is in listen-only mode, but we welcome any questions you may have. On the bottom of your screen is a toolbar with a section for Q&A. If you have a question or you need technical assistance, simply click Q&A and type your message into the box that appears. We will do our best to respond to all tech-related questions and will pass along all other questions to today's panelists so they can follow up with you after the webinar. Booklist offers closed captioning on all webinars. To enable or disable them on your screen, please look for and click the Show Captions icon on the toolbar mentioned earlier. If you choose to enable subtitles, you can adjust the size of them at any time by selecting Caption Settings. And finally, Booklist expects all participants to maintain an atmosphere of respect and fairness. Anyone who violates the standard of behavior, including engaging in any form of harassment, may, at the discretion of the organizers, be immediately removed. We have a wonderful event planned for you all today. We will begin with a brief introduction from each author about their book before moving to our group panel. To begin, we'll start with Amélie Wen Zhao. Amélie is a New York Times, Sunday Times, and internationally best-selling author of The Scorpion and the Night Blossom, The Song of the Last Kingdom duology, and the Blood Heir trilogy. She was born in Paris and grew up in Beijing, where she spent her days reenacting tales of legendary heroes, ancient kingdoms, and lost magic at her grandmother's courtyard house. She attended college in the United States and now resides in New York City, working as a finance professional by day and fantasy author by night. In her spare time, she loves to travel with her family in China, where she's determined to walk the rivers and lakes of old, just like the practitioners in her novels do. Welcome, Amélie. Tell us about the dragon and the sun lotus.
Hi, thanks, Kelly. Hello to everyone on our panel. So excited to be here. The Dragon and the Sun Lotus is the sequel to The Scorpion and the Night Blossom, which are Chinese young adult fantasies. And the first book follows a protagonist, a mortal girl called An Ying, who has to journey from her demon-ravaged homeland into the immortal fairy tale realms to compete in a magic trial to win a pill that will save her mother's life. Throughout, she meets very handsome and mysterious rivals, as well as a guard with a hidden identity, and both could be keys to saving her world. In The Dragon and the Sun Lotus, the stakes escalate. The demon realm has invaded both the mortal realm as well as the immortal realm, and An Ying might be the key to saving it all. She has to work with her handsome guard as well as choose between the romances that started in the first book with the hot demon rival. But most importantly of all, she has to be able to awaken the powers that are slumbering within her to be able to save not only her loved ones and her realm, but the three realms overall.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Amelie. Next, we'll be joined by Sarah Beth Durst. Sarah is the New York Times bestselling author of over 25 books for adults, teens, and kids, including cozy fantasy The Spell Shop. She's been awarded an American Library Association Alex Award, as well as a Myopic Fantasy Award. Several of her books have been optioned for film and television, including Drink, Slay, Love, which was made into a TV movie and was a question on Jeopardy! She lives in Stony Brook, New York, with her husband, her children, and her ill-mannered cat. Thanks for being here, Sarah.
I'm so excited to be talking about this book. I'm Sarah Beth Durst, and my new YA is The Faraway Inn. It is about a 16-year-old girl who she's just come off a really bad breakup, and she's decided to spend the summer helping her grand aunt in Vermont run her bed and breakfast. And when she gets there, the bed and breakfast is a little bit more dilapidated than she thought it would be. It's also holding a lot more secrets than she expected. There's also a groundskeeper's son who is a lot more handsome than she expected as well. This book is YA cozy fantasy. For me, cozy fantasy is meant to feel like a warm hug. It's meant to feel like your best friend sitting next to you and they've got their arm around you and they're saying, everything's going to be okay. And I had the idea for this book while I was writing my adult cozy fantasy, The Spell Shop. And I started thinking that there is one group that really needs a hug, a group of people that is old enough to understand that the world is on fire and too young to really have the agency to do anything to put the fire out. And I just really wanted to give them a refuge, an escape. And that is why I wrote The Faraway Inn. I wrote it for them and for everyone out there who needs a hug, who needs to just spend some time in a bed and breakfast that may or may not, no, definitely may be magical.
And a warm hug it is indeed. Thank you so much, Sarah. Our next introduction will come from Angela Montoya. Angela has been obsessed with the magic of storytelling since she was a little girl. She hasn't seen a day without a book in her hand, a show tune in her mind, or a movie quote on her lips. She is the author of Sinner's Isle and A Cruel Thirst. When she isn't lost in the world of words, Angela can be found hiding away on her small farm in Northern California, where she's busy bossing around her partner and their two children, as well as a host of animals. We're so glad you could join us, Angela. Please tell us about.
Let's see here. All right. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I am the author of Carnival Fantástico. I've tabbed it myself. I really enjoy this book. I happen to like it very well. Um, it's funny because I wrote the book, but I now that when I'm supposed to talk about it, I don't remember what it's about, but I'm going to try my best. Carnival Fantástico is a young adult romantasy that follows Esmeralda, who is an ex-thief and spy, and she is on the run being chased by the commander of the king's army. So she runs to Carnival Fantástico, which is a safe haven for misfits and criminals, and happens to be enchanted traveling carnival. There, she poses as a fortune teller, but in order to join the carnival, you can only be there for 1 year. And she knows that when she's out, the king's commander will find her. So she's determined to stay on. The only way for her to do that is if she becomes the lead act in the show. And she's willing to do whatever it takes to become that lead act, including partnering up with the boy who broke her heart. This has mayhem, magic, a rascal monkey, and an emu. Or no, it's an ostrich that has an affinity for all things that sparkle. So, welcome to the world of Carnival Fantástico.
And boy, is that ostrich a menace, let me tell you. Thank you so much, Angela. And finally, we'll hear from Kristy Boyce. Kristy played her first role-playing game in high school and has been friends with that group ever since, an impressive feat if you are in the D&D community. In fact, she married the DM. Nowadays, she teaches psychology as a senior lecturer at The Ohio State University. When she's not spending time with her husband and son, she's usually writing, reading, or watching happy reality TV. Christie is the New York Times bestselling author of Dating and Dragons, Dungeons and Drama, Hot British Boyfriend, and Hot Dutch Daydream, and lives in Pickerington, Ohio. Take it away, Christy.
Hi, everybody. Well, thank you so much for having me, and it's great to be here to talk with all of you. So, Roles and Rivalry is my third YA rom-com that I would consider to be a gaming or D&D book. Dating and Dragons and Dungeons and Drama are my other two, but they're all standalone. So, Roles and Rivalry is a whole new world and new characters, although I will say that there are a few cameos for anybody who wants to see those characters again. So this time we were following Hazel and Max. Hazel is a newly appointed color guard for her band, and she's also toying with becoming a DM or a dungeon master for her D&D group. And then she is surprised to find out that Max is coming back and joining her band. She and Max had become good friends in seventh and eighth grade, and actually their parents had played D&D together, so they spent a lot of time together. And she always had a bit of a crush on him, but then he moved away. So he comes back, and she's excited at first until she finds out that he is not quite how as she remembered him. He has a chip on his shoulder. He seems to, have some issues that she's not understanding, and also he's joined the percussion section. So in this particular band, the color guard and the percussion section do not get along. There's a lot of animosity, a lot of competition. So the book starts at band camp with the two groups kind of competing, fighting with each other, and then eventually making a bet about which section is going to do the best by the end of the marching band season. Simultaneously, though, she's starting her D&D group, and people are pushing Max to join that group, particularly the mom, who really wants the two of them to kind of get back together and become friends. So lots of, shenanigans and marching band fun and D&D fun. And yeah, Sarah mentioned a warm hug, and I feel like rom-coms are always that warm hug as well, and hopefully a little bit of a laugh. So it was a fun one to write.
Fantastic. It's a fun one to read too. All right. Thank you so much, Kristy. I now invite all of our panelists to turn on their cameras for our group conversation. And welcome back. Great to see your lovely faces all in a cluster. It looks like Angela is having some technical difficulties, so we will continue. We will start off with the conversation and make sure that she gets back on. So to start, when integrating romance into your stories, what do you hope readers take away from those romantic relationships? Let's start with Amélie.
I love this question. I think it's going to be a different answer for every author that you ask. And for me, when I was writing the romances for The Scorpion and the Night Blossom and The Dragon and the Sun Lotus, it was my first time at a love triangle. And before I'd sworn that I would never write any of them, but I love the way that this came together. I love the stories, and I love what both love interests have to offer because for me, the romance is a journey for the protagonist to come to find who she is, who she wants to be, and where that journey takes her in terms of choosing her love. So within the book, Anya has to choose between kind of like her heart versus what she really, really wants and what might be the best for the ones that she loves. And sometimes they're not the same thing. She has to kind of choose between what drew her in the first place and her heart versus the good of maybe the realm. And so it's really about being able to find yourself, coming to recognize shortcomings. In one of the romances, it's with a demon that's, their kind has invaded her realm, and she's been taught to really despise all of them since growing up. And she finds that this one is different, and there are some who, disagree, and they're not all the same. So she's learning to get over certain prejudices that she's learned to grow up with through her relationship with Yu Chen. So it's really about coming into their own, realizing who they are, and choosing their own destiny in choosing their romance.
Thank you so much. Sarah, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you hope readers take away from the romantic relationships in your book?
I love that you used the phrase journey of the protagonist because that's completely how I think of it. I mean, that's what a book is you're going on a journey with someone, and they're usually going from hurt to healed. One hopes. I guess not in Grimdark. Okay, there are books where that doesn't happen and it all falls apart and that's sad, but not the books I write. I write the happy books about healing. And so when you're talking about the integrating the romance into that journey, I guess I never really thought of it as something needing to be integrated. It's just, for me, it's another aspect of how your soul is healing in it. Particularly with cozy fantasy, with something like The Faraway Inn, where she's beginning in a place like she's running away. I mean, she's got her parents' permission, but she is going to spend the summer away from everything and everything that has hurt her in the past, and to try to find a way to heal. And part of that is coming to know who she is as a person and what she wants in the world, what her dreams are, and that sort of thing. And the relationship, for me, the romance in that is just another facet of that, because I think for a romance, for me to feel healthy and strong and good, it needs to be a relationship that makes you more you, where you discover who you are instead of like losing yourself and reshaping yourself to be part of an us. Calissa, when she meets Jack, finds somebody that sees her worth, and she gets to see her worth and come into her own. So that's what I hope people take from it, as well as like a desire for drinking tea and eating cake.
And Kristy, tell us a little bit about your romance that you hope readers take, what that you hope readers will take away from it.
Absolutely. Well, so mine is, I'm correct me if I'm wrong. I think I'm the only like contemporary with no magic in my book. So, and it's, I have a wide range of readers as well. I mean, I have girls who are 11 and 12 who are reading this book, as well as 60-year-olds. But I'm always very cognizant of my younger readers and kind of that this might be some of their first times to get to see relationships. Some of them are the first time they're picking up a rom-com. And so I always am really cognizant, kind of thinking about what does a healthy relationship look like in high school, and what expectations should you have, and kind of like Sarah was mentioning, like that idea of who you should become in this relationship. Are you losing yourself? Are you being pulled from your other friends? Or is this kind of making you a better version of who you already were? So I'm always really thoughtful and trying to be really thoughtful about that, and making sure that I'm trying to show healthy boundaries and healthy relationships, as well as kind of showing that you can be in that relationship and still have other friends, still go after your goals, and kind of have a more kind of well-rounded situation in those relationships. So that's always my thought when I'm writing.
Thank you so much. I love how throughout all of your answers, there's sort of this through line of like trusting oneself. And when you're getting into a romance or a relationship, that like who you are is probably the most important part of that relationship. It's you all do a really great job at showing like how different romantic interests bring out the best of a person, even if it's not quite what they expect. So, Kristy, that was a great transition, by the way, of we've got a good handful of subgenres here. Um, where did you each draw inspiration from when deciding on the sh subgenre you wanted your romance to be a part of? We've got cozy fantasy, we've got a bit of higher fantasy. We have, if Angela can join us, we have a darker fantasy, and with Kristy, we have this more contemporary rom-com space. And so I feel like there's each one is obviously very different, but I'd love to hear from each of you. So let's start with Sarah.
I can totally pinpoint the moment. March 2020. That would be when I decided to write cozy fantasy. I found myself returning to all those comfort reads, those books that when you close them, you feel like the world is magical and has good things in it. And I wanted to write books that feel like an escape. I've always thought an escape gets tossed around as it like it's this luxury, like it's this unnecessary thing. And I think that's the furthest thing from true. I think it's essential. I think if you keep hurling yourself at that brick wall, you're just going to break. And you have to regroup and remember why you're doing that. And that's what draws me to fantasy in the first place. I mean, I love the fact that human beings are capable of not only imagining, but falling in love with people and places that don't and can't possibly exist. I just think that's so cool. I mean, I was a kid that spent, okay, whenever I wasn't reading a book, my parents were like, child, you need some fresh air. And they would toss me outside. I would spend the time in the woods behind my house searching for a dragon's egg. So it's really kind of extremely natural that I am here writing these books now. So that's why cozy fantasy in me.
And a good combination it makes. Kristy, why don't you tell us a little bit about your subgenre?
Absolutely. Well, this one's kind of a little bit of an easy one for me in the fact that I did marry my DM and my inspiration kind of comes from my own life. So I don't know, like when I was thinking about different books to write, I always have these like types of books I wanted to write. So like I wanted to write a study abroad book, which I had done previously. And then when I wrote Dungeons and Drama, I was like, I want to write my D&D book. And it was just exploring none of it is autobiographical. I didn't have a rivals to lovers or fake dating or any of those kinds of things happening necessarily. I guess a little bit of friends to lovers maybe, but at the same time, I wanted to kind of explore what my high school life was like and to explore how D&D in this case could kind of interact with other parts of the world, whether it's musical theater or marching band. So honestly, it's just fun for me. Those are all parts of my life that I really enjoyed, and I love getting to kind of mix and match them and combine with them and just life in certain kinds of ways because it's weird how so when I wrote Dungeons and Drama, I really thought that was a very niche book, and I was so happy to get to write it and to have it be published. I did not think it was going to be well accepted, I guess, because I just didn't think a lot of people would care. And then of all the books, the one that I thought was the most niche has actually become the one that's the most like people read it the most. And I get so many emails of people saying, "Oh, this is just like my life." And so I realized like the more like particular sometimes that I write something, the more it resonates with people in this weird sort of way. So it's been fun to kind of mine my world and kind of pull out details and write about them in that sort of way.
Fantastic. And now, were you a marching band kid as well?
Oh yes, I was also color guard captain. So no, I didn't do all the things again. We didn't have a rivalry with percussion, and this is neither here nor there. But I do still have high school friends, and my husband was a bass clarinet player, not a percussion player. So they were like, "Well, who's the percussion player that she was actually in love with before she married you?" And I was like, "No, no, no, that's not what's going on here." So again, not autobiographical, but definitely have some marching band experience.
Fantastic. Amelie, why don't you tell us a little bit about your subgenre's inspiration?
I love how each of us have different subgenres, but it's like the where we got our inspiration is so similar. What Sarah mentioned about escapism was completely what I went into The Scorpion and the Night Blossom and The Dragon and the Sun Lotus with. I wanted an escape. And what Kristy said about mining your world, that's completely where I kind of escaped into. Growing up in Beijing, I would always go to my grandmother's house, and she lived in this traditional Chinese courtyard house, a 四合院儿. And she had all these like ancient kind of, to me, they were like ancient artifacts. I kind of thought of them as like these magical old treasure chests and like weird wooden sculpture carvings and like jade amulets that she had in these boxes and everything. And I remember like sometimes she would get annoyed at me touching them and she would be like, "You just cursed yourself to like 84 years of bad luck." And those things stayed with me as a kid. And then we would watch all these Chinese dramas with high fantasy, kind of like as canon to me as I guess I think Lord of the Rings would be to the Western audience. And so that's the type of world that I've sought to bring in with these books. It's really the fairy tale realms. There's a whole kingdom of sky which exists literally in the sky in the clouds, and it's a sort of place where these beautiful immortal human appearing figures rule. And it's supposed to be this perfect world of, flowers and like clouds and phoenixes and everything. And then we have the mortal realm, which is where we live. And in this one, the mortal realm isn't in such a great place. The demon realm is invading them. And then, of course, there's the demon realm, which in our high fantasy is the kind of bad place to be. So I wanted to combine those elements, and this series very much pays tribute to Chinese high fantasy and those lands and those magical worlds where I grew up in. So wanted to set an adventure there and really bring in all of the aesthetics as well. My editor once asked me like, why are there flowers when they do magic in this world? And I was like, Krista, there's no reason. It's just vibes. I just want the flowers because it's pretty. Um, but yeah, that's where I chose to set my romance in. I think, as a young girl, obviously, there were no hot demons pining for me, and I was a very nerdy little Chinese schoolgirl going to school, and doing all my math homework and everything. So, really wanted this entirely escapist thing that I think young me would have really, really loved, and now me would also love to read about.
And escapist it is. I feel like all of these books really, they're great at immersing you in the environment. Amelie, I listened to The Scorpion and the Night Blossom before I read The Sun and the Dragon Lotus. Or, sorry, I'm mixing up the words.
The mouthful.
Um, and the audiobook is actually very, very immersive, which I'm not usually an audiobook listener, but it really like pulled me in, especially the flowers. The flowers do capture the vibes. So, when building out the primary relationships that you all focused on in your stories, what key moments are most important to you to display in those relationships? So, let's start with Kristy.
Yeah, well, I was thinking about this because, of course, as a romance writer, part of me is like the kissing scenes because, of course, it's fun to get to write those. But, to be a little bit more serious about it for a second, I was actually I'm a psychologist. Also, I'm at my Ohio State office right now, if you can't tell. And I was thinking a little bit about the term that everybody uses is situationships. And it's like, basically you're kind of in a relationship, but there's not a lot of commitment and you don't really know what's going on. And for me, I want to contrast that with what's happening in my books by having these scenes of like trust and self-disclosure, which I feel like are like a really important component to a healthy meaningful relationship, kind of moving from that situationship into a real relationship where you actually feel like I can be vulnerable. I can share these things that are troubling me or that are worrying me or things that I really haven't talked about with a lot of other people. I can share these things with you because I know that you understand me and you're going to support me. So I try to have those scenes in each one of my books and I think a lot about them and when are they going to come and how are they going to say things. And I feel like those scenes kind of hopefully kind of build out and allow the readers to realize that these two are growing a lot closer and that this is more than just a fling or a situationship or whatever else you might want to call it.
Thank you. Sarah, why don't you tell us a bit more about building out that primary relationship that you focus on and the key moments that were important to you?
I really wish I had this like very intelligent answer to give you with this, but I write a lot on instinct. I really do. I kind of just I try to fall in love with my character and then just trust where they lead me and let it unfurl. This is gonna sound really cheesy, but I write by what I like to call the rule of awesome, where I establish who the characters are and what the world is and what the magic is. And then I ask myself, okay, given that this is true, what is the most awesome thing that could happen next? And I just walk my way through the entire story that way. And the building of the romance plot is just with that. Like they start in Faraway Inn. um, they start not knowing each other. So first, obviously, the most awesome thing is how do they meet? What do they talk about? And then how does their relationship build with like the him not sure he trusts her because he knows this inn has a whole lot of secrets that he's not so sure he's supposed to share with anyone, even though she seems super helpful and kind of cute. Um, and so I really do let it unfurl by instinct and try to just be as emotionally honest to the characters as possible. And I also enjoy writing the kissing scenes.
And we enjoy reading them. Amelie, why don't you tell us about building out those key moments?
Yeah, I think for me it's a combination of what Christy and Sarah were talking about, both instinct, but also I've read like a couple like Romancing the Beat and how to plot out every moment and everything. For me, the romance I approach it as as the same as storytelling, that there has to be some kind of conflict or tension, right? And there has to be an unraveling of that. And I know we're talking about tropes later, but my favorite is the enemies to lovers because there's so much tension at the start, and it's not just physical, it's going to be mental as well and spiritual. Like Ying and Yuchen are coming at each other from very different belief systems, and with very different goals. And I think the first key moment is that first, I think of it as an onion, peeling the first layer, and like Kristy was mentioning, building that little bit of trust. So there's a moment in the first book of this series where they save each other from the first trial, a deadly fall, and he sees her save a another little monster, a demon of sorts, who has been reviled, but who, isn't really harmful to them. And he's like, "Why did you do that?" And she said, "Well, it was a life, it had a heart, and I just didn't think it deserved to die." And so that is the moment he completely falls for her because that's his misunderstanding. He's also a monster, classified as a monster, but he wants to be seen as human. And so that's the first moment where he holds out his hand and helps her, and they build some form of trust. And throughout, there's like so many secrets and juicy like layers you continue to unravel with the onion. More tension as he's hiding things from her. He could be spying for the enemy and everything. And then, of course, the kissing scene, or in my case, the only one hot spring scene. Um, and and then the after. So I really view it as I think for me, writing romance, I love it when there's tension and conflict in their path, and they really move beyond those obstacles to really choose each other or not. We'll see. And yeah.
I cannot wait for the readers to sort of like see the path that you take this love triangle and the tension on, because the way that it concludes is like it's very satisfying. And finally, we have Angela back. Unfortunately, there was a
Yeah.
power outage,
Yes. Yes.
but Angela's joining us from her phone. So to pull you in, we're talking about the primary relationships in the stories and what were like the key moments that were most important for you to display. So, with why don't you take it away?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Of
Thank you for your patience. I was
course.
scrambling, so here I am. We're making do. I think for me, with Carnival Fantastico in particular, both of these characters in their own way have felt unworthy, have felt left behind. And so I really wanted for them to find somebody that chooses them and that will never leave them. And um and even still they do in some way or another, because that's kind of just how the real world works. And so for these two characters, like how I really wanted to build the romance and just the bond between them were in these little moments. Because even for me, like in real life, it's the little gestures that are huge for me. So for him, Ignacio, he's the main male character in Carnival Fantastico. For him, it's noticing all of these things about her, these things that she might have just thrown away a comment like, "Oh, I'd love to try cherries someday. I've never tried them." That's like a rich person's fruit. And so in his mind, it just gets glued in there. He's like, "Okay, someday how I'm going to get this girl cherries." And so it's all of these little moments that build for me in this story. And it's the times where she recognizes that he recognizes her and he sees her, that I felt like really built for these two. So that's what I was really hoping to go with, was these little tiny moments amongst the huge moments as well, where they're literally fighting for each other, life and death sort of situations. So we have all these like big chaotic moments amongst these touching little things. And so that's what I was trying to build with Carnival Fantastico, and just in life. I just love that in life as well.
Yeah. I feel like you all really capture those little moments, whether it is in these life or death situations, or you're, playing D&D and trying to like feel comfortable as a DM or fixing an inn or battling to get the immortal pill. It's, there's all of these really nicely integrated like little moments that you all capture within these relationships that like really empower these, protagonists. It's great. So similarly, how do you approach the other relationships of your main characters to strike a balance between the romantic and the platonic? Because for all of them, there's either these found families or established families, and there's tension. So why don't we start with Angela?
For me, I feel like those are equally as important as the romance, especially in romantasy genre. We're kind of building and braiding all of those dynamics. So you have their backstories, their family histories that's integrated, and sometimes that's what messes them up. Sometimes that's what gives them all of their heartbreak, and that also kind of builds who they become as these young adults. And so my favorite thing to do whenever I first start writing is working and building up the backstory. And so for both of these characters in Carnival Fantástico, who their family dynamics before they even met each other is the thing that really built who they were. It changed the fabric of their being because for her, she'd been left behind by her family and he was never good enough for his father. And so that really changed them as humans. And on top of that, like I love side characters. I love friendships and found family. I think I'll never not have them as one of the core things in these stories. And I think especially for young adult novels, like that found family, that core group that really just has your back is so beautiful and powerful. And I wanted to really build that. And so for Ignacio, he doesn't necessarily have that, but he sees it in Esmeralda and sees what she's built. And it also becomes a growth thing. And I was like, okay, wait, I can't open myself. And this is kind of the beauty that can come with it. And so yeah, that's what I just love. I love found family and I love big messy families as well. So you'll never find a book where I just don't have a bunch of characters that really have each other's backs and love each other.
It's messy, but it's sort of like the fun mess. They put the fun and dysfunctional in that found family, in particular. Amelie, why don't you tell us a bit more about your approach to the platonic relationships for your main character?
Yeah, I love what Angela said about how it's so important in especially in YA literature and for teens to see this kind of acceptance and found family as well as real family is super important to me too. I'm an eldest daughter and all of the memes that come with it are true for me. And in the this duology, An has a little sister that really mirrors my relationship with my little sister. They're the same number of years apart, and that relationship has really built An into who she is. Her desire to protect her little sister, who was, I think, like 6 or 9 years old when her realm fell and her father was killed, and her mother became essentially comatose after her soul was half sucked out by a demon. Um, so it's this fierce desire to protect all that she has lost in her father and her mother, really, and becoming a kind of mother figure to the only closest person that she has left to her, which is her little sister. And it's this that drives her into the immortality trials of the Kingdom of Sky or the immortal realms. And it's this that drives her in The Dragon and the Sun Lotus as well. It's the desire to save her realm, and because she wants to gain back all the joy and the days in the sun that she used to enjoy with her family before it was all taken away from her. So I think family is one type of other relationship that's super important to An Ying, but also in the process, she's kind of gotten a found family with these kind of outcasts that are in the immortality trials. There's the cutest little fox demon spirit who's the one that she saves in the first trial. And there's another the lover of the fox spirit, and she is a undisclosed surprise kind of spirit demon. And they are competing, and they're the outcasts clearly. And so they form these bonds, and there's kind of like the fox spirit is really lovable and cute, and she's the glue between the really grumpy, her really grumpy love, and Anying, who's kind of like cold and wasn't used to making friends all along. And so to see them come together and tease each other, and then to see them really come to fight each other, not fight each other, fight together alongside each other, as all comes to chaos, was one of the real joys of writing this book, as well as the sequel. So I think it's important for teens and young adults, and honestly everybody, to see not just romantic relationships, but our characters grow and become who they are through platonic as well as familial or non-romantic relationships.
Fantastic. And Kristy, why don't you tell us a bit about the platonic relationships?
Absolutely. Well, with D&D, it's kind of baked into what D&D is that these friendships are going to be so incredibly important. And I played with it in a couple of different ways. In this book, for Roles and Rivalry, I have her playing with her best friend, but then also including some characters or some high school students that she doesn't know very well. And that's kind of one of my favorite things to do, is to bring these characters together who don't know each other at the beginning, and then watch these friendships form through D&D, but then also outside of D&D. And so that as others have said, I feel like that is just as important as the romance. Yes, it's a rom-com, but we need those friendships, and we need also to be able to see that with that romantic relationship, it also is kind of embedded within this friendship, and that we can all get along and we're all happy together, I guess. But then in addition, I also agree about family relationships, especially in high school. That can be kind of fraught. Obviously, there's a lot of angst, there's a lot of teen drama, things like that. So I do like to kind of think about that and put that into my book. So in this book, it's a little bit about her mom in particular, who is, I guess, kind of like a stage mom, except she'd be the band mom. She's really into band, and she was an alumni of this high school, and she is supportive, but she also just is putting a lot of pressure on Hazel throughout her marching band season. And so there's that kind of conflict of trying to make mom happy, but also, maybe I can't do everything that mom wants, and how is that going to play out? So there's a few different dynamics, and I feel like that's pretty true to how it is to be a person, right? Like there's not just going to be the one thing. You have the different friendships, you have family issues, you have romantic relationships, and finding that balance is always can be kind of a tough one, but I think it's really important for the book. So yeah, always good to include those friendships and things.
Stellar. And Sarah, why don't you round us out?
Yeah, I'm totally going to jump on the loving found family thing. So I've written a lot of books. Faraway Inn is going to actually be my 31st book. And one of the things I've discovered when you write a lot of books is the things that you're obsessed about. And one of the things I've been obsessed about through all my books are different ways for a person to be strong, what it means to be strong. And the answer I've been coming to lately with the Faraway Inn and my cozies is that kindness is strength, connection with others is strength. So building a whole community that was really one of the goals when I wrote it. So there is Calissa and Jack is, of course, the primary relationship, and that romance that pulls her through. But there's also her great aunt, Auntie Z, who owns a bed and breakfast, who's kind of like the grumpy, does not want her there, and healing that family relationship. Relationship with her moms is really important, and all of the offbeat. I'm trying so hard not to give spoilers. To be like magical surprise, but there are many offbeat characters in this inn, and there may or may not be a small dragon. And building out those relationships was important, not just because it's fun and I like it, but it was very much what I'm trying to say with this book, is that connecting with others makes you strong and can give you that happy ending if you let yourself open up to somebody else let them see who you are and care and connect with someone. So,
Yeah, that is such a great way to put that. I feel like all of your titles really capture the essence of this, like the power of connection along with romance, that it's not just about, the heat of the romance. It's also about the power of connecting with others and finding yourself in those connections and gaining strength from that. So I'm going to jump around a little bit for time's sake. We've obviously got a really wide breadth of stories here, but I'm wondering, what would you personally like to see more in the YA romance arena that you feel like isn't being totally captured? Why don't we start with Kristy?
Well, I mean, I guess for me, I'm kind of thinking more in the rom-com space. And I think one of the things that's been nice to see, and again, was a little bit of a surprise to me, is how some of these maybe activities that are not considered to be the quote cool activities, that those have started to kind of, be brought out more. So I guess I'd just say I'd love to see more of that. I mean, I think really the answer is I want there to be enough books that everybody can feel seen and represented and find the things that they love. And so maybe that means more nerdy things, not necessarily that it has to be D&D, but there's all kinds of stuff out there that maybe hasn't been explored. Let's get a model UN book. I don't know if there's a model UN rom-com. You know what I mean? Like there's just a lot of fun stuff out there that kids have done and that adults did back in the day. And I think they'd love to get to kind of re-experience that too. So just, as much as diversity in terms of activities and experiences as possible, I think is always a good thing.
I would love a Model UN
Right.
rom-com. I was a Model UN kid, and oh boy, the tension, the teenage tension there is great. Um, Amelie, why don't you take it away?
I was also a Model UN kid and I loved it was my favorite like after school. And yeah, all the tension, the debates, enemies to lovers and potential. We'll need to see this from you, Christy. For me, I think in the YA romance space, I'd love to just continue seeing more diversity in terms of, who's writing these stories, who they're for, what kind of an audience it reaches, what kinds of backgrounds these authors are coming from, the types of romantic relationships, the types of platonic relationships, the types of identities of the main characters. Just something similar to what Christy was saying, something that's, representation and out there for every kid, especially for the young adults and the teens who might be, exploring who they are and who they want to be. I think literature for many of us, maybe it was pretty foundational to shaping, oh, I want to resemble this heroine or this hero or this person in this book that I saw. And I think these books are a way to like give you strength. At least when I was a kid, reading from my library, I would want to emulate my favorite characters from books, and that was kind of how I found my comfort. So continuing to see more of that in not just YA romance, but all across the board.
Absolutely. There's nothing better than sort of like seeing a little piece of yourself within a story, whether it's a romantic story or otherwise. Sarah, what would you like to see more of?
honestly, I just want more time to read all the books that I want to read. There's so much good stuff out there. Like listening to all of you talk about your books, I'm like, okay, I'm enjoying being on this panel, but I really just want to go read your books. There's so much good stuff out there, and I personally just want more. I want more stories, more magic, more people falling in love. I want more ways to people for people to find their happily ever after. I want more I want more healthy relationships where people are nice to each other and they pick the nice person to be with. That's just a personal thing for me. I mean, um, more more dragons, more people that feel like they can are being together makes them feel like they're riding on a dragon. Um, more more smiles, more kisses, more things that make the world better. I see our job as writers as there's a certain level of awesome that exists in the world, and our job is to add a few more drops. So I just want more drops of awesome. That's all I want. And more time to read them.
Spoken like an awesome romantic. I love it. And Angela, what would you like to see more of?
I mean, I will second, third, fourth, everything everybody just said. 100% more diversity, more marginalized authors sharing their stories. And also just like different lore, different mythology to explore. I think would be so, so fun in the romantasy, in the fantasy space. Like, give us everything. I want to explore every world, every mythology, and also have romance and kissing while we're exploring it. I think you can't go wrong. And also maybe kids that just have no idea what they're doing in life. I would need that for myself as a teenager. I still don't know what I'm doing in life. So give me something, give me some kids that are just fumbling their way. I'll take it. But yeah, definitely give us more diversity and let's like explore. Every time I read a new story that comes from different lore, a different part of the world, I always feel just so excited and thrilled and fall in love even more with the diversity that this world has to offer. So that's it. Like just flood us with more diversity, more marginalized voices.
Absolutely. I love to hear it. And I think what's really great about, of course, our sponsor of today's program, Random House, is that we have this small batch of seemingly all under sort of the same umbrella of romance, but the diversity that's here right now of stories and experiences is already so broad. It's like, so let's just get more of that. And I feel like you are all on board with that. And I love to see it. So on a lighter note, I know this was touched on a little bit earlier, but what's your favorite romance trope? And similarly, do you have like a favorite author that executes that trope? Let's start with, let's see, who looks enthusiastic? We'll start with Sarah.
If anybody says favorite author book, and it's suddenly like you've never read anything. What books? What do I like?
That one's
I
too, if
adore.
that's too on the spot, it's totally fine.
There are a lot of tropes that I adore. I love Grumpy Sunshine. I love Found Family. I adore, I don't know if this is really a trope, but I love bonding over food. I do that a lot in Faraway Inn. There's a lot of cake. She likes to bake. He likes to eat. Works out pretty well for both of them. So I adore bonding over food scenes. And his favorite, I don't know, I'm going blank,
That's
but
totally fine.
I can tell you an author that I'm absolutely adoring right now is T. Kingfisher. She writes these really like quirky, some of them are romance, some of them are a little more horror, some of them are fairy tale retelling. She runs the gamut, but they're always clever and magical.
I love that. A bonding over food. I feel like that is slowly becoming a trope, and I similarly love that. The little tea scenes are in your book are just like, oh, a little hug and a bug. It's
Thank you. It could
great.
also be because I love to eat, you know.
Similarly, I do too. Angela, tell us a little bit about your favorite tropes.
Okay, I love every trope, just about. Like anytime I'm reading a good book, I'm like, this is my favorite trope. I definitely anything, and I don't know if this is a trope, but I'm just gonna go ahead and imagine it is, but yearning is my favorite of all. Like I still always think about Mr. Darcy's hand flex in Pride and Prejudice. Like I think about that probably way too often. And so it's the he falls first. I just like I just want it all. I just want him to just like fall for her and yearn for her and be miserable about it. And I just want, like, I will read anything like that. Anything where he's just like, I will die for her. And she just has no idea. I want that. And then as far as favorite authors, it goes with even as I'm reading books, like whoever I'm reading at that moment is my favorite author. I just love authors. I love reading. And so every single time I'm reading a new story, I'm like, okay, yeah, they're my favorite. They're the best. So I can't name anybody because my brain automatically stops working. Anytime anybody even asks what book I'm reading, I cannot tell you. So I'll just say all the authors on this panel do it so well, and they're my favorites.
I love that. And the yearning. Oh my gosh. Yearning is absolutely a trope. And just like,
Good.
the
Yeah,
excellent point about the hand, the yearning, it's so
the
good.
hand. Yes.
Of course. And Kristy, tell us about your favorite tropes.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, I agree with everything everybody's saying. Yearning 100 billion%. And then the food, it just made me laugh saying that because I was going through my mind and I was like, yeah, Dungeons and Dramas, Pop-Tarts, Dating and Dragons is pancakes, and Rolls and Revelry is nachos. So like, I don't know why I have like a singular food and then it becomes an obsessive thing that they talk about, but definitely the food. I also agree about the idea that I love all the tropes, and it's kind of, for me, it's like whatever I'm writing right now is always the thing that I love the most. So I've been on a bit of a rivals to lovers kick lately, and I do love that because of the tension. But I think because I'm writing contemporary, sometimes pulling off a true enemies to lovers is a tad more difficult because if they're both 16, 17-year-olds, are they truly enemies? Like on a real, it's not a demon king, and there, there's levels. So with rivals, that makes sense, right? They can be competing against things or, competing in marching band or whatever. And so that's been fun to get to do and to kind of build that tension in and then kind of, unravel that with time. So that's always a favorite for me. And I do love fake dating. I've only written one book with fake dating, but it was a fun one to get to do. So that's on I feel like I have a rotating list of tropes, and I feel like fake dating's coming back around. I have to do another one of those sooner than later. So I guess that would be my thoughts on that.
Love it. I love a fake dating. Oh, it's so good. As the realization builds, it's chef's kiss. And finally, Amélie, tell us what's your favorite tropes.
I love this question because now I'm really hungry and I want to read or reread everybody's books on this panel. I love like all the tropes when I'm reading them. Like there are some that I don't think I'd be able to write. Like I'm not very good with like cozier or like friends to lovers, I think. But I love reading them. I love reading fake dating. I always laugh now when it's the only one bed trope because I can feel the author just winking at me through the screen. They're like, "We put this in there for you." The one that I love writing the most, and that's shown up in all three of my series so far, has been enemies to lovers. And in my case, it's their actual, like there is a demon king that Kristy was referencing, and he does want to spy on her kingdom and bring it down. I just think there's just so much tension, so much potential for yearning, which I absolutely love as well. And there are so many directions it could go. I think I've played with it in my series as well. In my previous series, Song of the Last Kingdom, it was kind of like enemies to lovers to enemies. And then in this one, I won't spoil it, but I play with all the different directions that it could go in because you can just throw in more conflict and have them see how these characters react to the obstacles. And yeah, I always, same as Sarah, I'm like, when I get asked favorite books, favorite authors, it sounds like I haven't read anything ever. So I do have one book I'll recommend a debut that's coming out next year. It's called The Poet Empress. It is the most creative take on the enemies to lovers-ish trope that I've seen. And I literally read it in two sittings. Like literally I read it, slept for 5 hours, and I woke up and I was like, I need to read this. So I think it comes out in January and I loved that book. Excited for it. But yeah, honestly, all the authors, all the books, and all the tropes.
Fantastic. We have a panel of excellent taste here, all fantastic tropes. So we are rounding out our time, so we won't be able to get to every single question. But I just wanted to say thank you so much for your time and your energy. This has been incredibly fun. Angela, even though we didn't have you for the entire time, I'm so glad we got to have you for at least a chunk of it. If anybody is interested in this beautiful panel of authors, you know where to find their books. They're in all the places you usually find books. So thank you all so much. It's fun, interesting, and we're so excited for the world to read these fantastic books. So tomorrow All attendees will receive an email containing links to today's video recording and a lovely certificate of completion. For more about Booklist webinars, be sure to visit www.booklistonline.com/webinars, where you can view archives of past webinars like this one and register for upcoming ones. Keep an eye on that page because we'll be adding more events in the new year, as this is our last panel of this year. You can also find out about the latest webinars on our social channels. You can visit us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Blue Sky. So thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar. A huge, huge thank you to our panelists again, Kristy, Sarah, Angela, and Amélie, and of course to our sponsor, Random House Children's Books. This concludes today's webinar, and we will see you next time.